Hello everyone, this is part 4 of What If Naruto Found Out About Hinata's Feelings, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Lawn had told Naruto to stand back, but the Genin's need to help friends had overpowered him and he rushed in foolishly to intercept the shinobi head for Lawn, and more importantly, the scroll of unrefined jutsu he held. Lawn could not stop himself from deploying the jutsu when he noticed whom it would hit. He channeled as much chakra as he could into the scroll to change the effect of the otherwise sly jutsu before it released itself from the scroll right at Naruto. He hoped it would suffice. Naruto felt a searing pain and everything went black. "Kit, what is going on?" asked the Kyuubi, half amused, half annoyed. Naruto looked up at the cage that contained the Kyuubi and noticed that one of its paws was sticking out of the cage, very improbably. The paw seemed to have phased through the bar of the cage and now seemed stuck. "Paws don't usually do that," said Naruto, a bit dimly. "Of course not, you idiot," said the Kyuubi, a bored tone in its growl, "which is why I'm asking you." "How should I know?" said Naruto defensively. "Does it hurt?" "Not in the slightest," spoke the Kyuubi, growing increasingly bored. Naruto walked up to the paw and looked at it apprehensively. He reached out and touched it. The fur was actually quite soft. Suddenly, however, the paw seemed to melt and radiate off intense heat and chakra. "Ah, Kit, that hurts. What on earth are you doing?" snarled Kyuubi. "Whoa, wait, stop," said Naruto frantically. The melted paw began to snake along the ground and wound around Naruto. The pain was intense. It felt as if the paw was melting into him. "What's going on?" "Kit," said the Kyuubi through clenched teeth, "having your paw melt off was not an enjoyable activity, and the threat of your hostess suddenly only served to make things worse." Naruto screamed as he felt the last of the melted paw enter his skin, and suddenly he heard a voice, just as he felt he was going to lose consciousness. "Naruto-kun," rasped a terrified voice. It sounded like it had been crying. Naruto awoke in a familiar room, a hospital room. He looked blearily at the figure that had called out his name. It looked like Hinata. "Hi Hinata," whispered Naruto with immense effort. What happened?" Hinata broke out into open sobs again and hugged Naruto. "IITH thought TUW were GG going to DS." she cried into his chest. Naruto was surprised to find he didn't ache from the hug. His arms, however, felt like bags of concrete. He managed a smile. Apparently, he still had trouble coordinating himself, even if he wasn't in pain, and said with a bit more force, "Well, you know how it is Hinata. Death isn't too fond of me. I'm probably too loud for his taste." Hinata looked up at Naruto and gave him a shaky laugh and tear-stained smile. The blonde genin tried to lift his head to give her a kiss, but found that it too felt more like a boulder than a skull. Hinata laughed again and kissed him. "As long as you're okay, Naruto-kun," smiled Hinata. She hugged him again and Naruto suddenly felt like the weights on his body had left him and hugged Hinata back. "What happened?" "I know I rushed in, again," said Naruto sheepishly. "The jutsu hit you," said Hinata as she pulled up a chair and sat next to his bedside, "and knocked you out. You've been here for a day." Hinata looked at Naruto sadly. "Wow, what did Lawn say that jutsu was supposed to do?" asked Naruto. "According to him, it's supposed to overload the chakra system," said Hinata. "How's that work?" asked Naruto. "He said that it draws all the physical and mental energies of the body and converts them to chakra, and then adds them to the chakra already in the body. It then focuses it behind the navel and bursts it outward." Hinata shuddered. "The person explodes, violently." Naruto felt a lead weight drop into his stomach. Could this have happened to him, albeit to a lesser extent? He decided to ask. "So, what happened to me?" asked Naruto uneasily. Hinata looked at him with a sad smile. "Nothing permanent or dangerous as far as Sakura and Hokage-sama told me." Naruto felt the lead weight dissipate. "That's great. When can I go?" Hinata didn't meet Naruto's eye. "I don't know Naruto-kun. Sakura said you have to stay here for observation, According to Lorne, he managed to change the jutsu at the very last possible moment, but he changed it so haphazardly, there's no telling what it's done to your chakra system. Naruto slumped back into his pillows. Great, he thought sullenly, at least Hinata's by my side. The door to the hospital room burst open suddenly, revealing a pink-haired figure, a busty figure and a figure that had its nose in a book. Ah, you're awake, Naruto, said Sakura, running to his bedside and putting a hand on his forehead, and your fever's gone too. Great. Thanks for helping me out, Sakura, said Naruto. He turned to Tsunade, you too, Aba-chan. Tsunade let this lack of respect slide. He was fine, though with stamina like his, it was really rather expected. No problem, Naruto. Kakashi-sensei, asked Naruto, what are you here for? Ha, responded Kakashi, as dense as ever, oh. We've got some questions to ask you. With that, began Tsunade, Hinata and Sakura, we need you two to please leave the room. I'm afraid you can't hear this. Hinata looked a bit mutinous. Anything that concerned her Naruto-kun was certainly something she should hear. Nonetheless, she followed Sakura, albeit rather sullenly, out the door of the room. Naruto, there was more to that jutsu than Hinata has probably told you, began Kakashi once the two kunoichi had left the room. Lorne changed it, but not sufficiently that it didn't draw out chakra from you, and the kyuubi. That explains my dream, said Naruto suddenly. What dream? Asked Tsunade sharply. It could be integral to understanding what may happen to Naruto. I was in front of the kyuubi's cage, but its paw was sticking out, literally through the one of the bars of the cage. I touched it and then it melted, wrapped around me and burnt into my skin. There was so much chakra in the paw it was scary. The kyuubi is still missing its paw too, explained Naruto. You're damn right, Kit. And it hurts like a bee, growled the kyuubi. That is unusual to say the least, spoke Tsunade hesitantly after a pause. There's no way of knowing what effects that will have. You did essentially absorb a literal piece of the kyuubi into your chakra network. I say you find the nomads and immediately have them restore you to your pre-paw absorption state. Ah. Okay then Aba-san, said Naruto a bit confused. Naruto, try using chakra, said Kakashi suddenly. Sure, said Naruto. He threw his hands up into his favorite seal and performed the Kage Bunshin Jutsu. A clone appeared with no ill effects on either side. Said Kakashi thoughtfully, well, you can still use chakra normally. Concentrate your chakra for me. But, get up. With surprisingly little difficulty, Naruto got up and began to try to concentrate his chakra. It didn't work, but suddenly he felt a huge surge of it, way more than he had ever had without drawing from the kyuubi. He felt tingly all over and felt parts of his body feel like they were turning into jelly. His legs gave out, and he ceased focusing his chakra when he hit the floor. Tsunade had her mouth agape, and Kakashi surely looked the same way, but his mask didn't show otherwise. Naruto looked at them confused. What's going on? Your body, managed Tsunade. Naruto got up quickly and ran to the mirror in the room. He no longer had ears in the usual sense, he had fox ears. Large, fluffy fox ears. And the marks on his face had deepened a bit. And he had a tail. 9 of them. 9 swaying fox tails, each fluffier than the next. He turned back to Tsunade and Kakashi and yelled at the top of his voice, what the F happened to me? Kawaii, squeaked a familiar voice. It was Hinata, who ran up to Naruto and hugged him, playing with one of his ears. It's so soft. Naruto looked at Hinata a bit bewilderedly and then asked, Hinata-chan, what happened? I heard you scream out, so I got scared and ran in, said Hinata sheepishly. I guess you're fine, Naruto-kun. She blushed. Naruto kissed Hinata's forehead and turned to Tsunade. I assume you now know what the paw did to me, huh? Yes, but should we really? Asked Tsunade. She hoped she got her implication across. Really what? Asked Hinata, looking back and forth between the two. I want to tell her. Alone, said Naruto, his face set and his tone resolute. Tsunade nodded grimly. Hinata was a wonderful girl, but she had no idea what this could do. She and Kakashi left silently. Tell me what Naruto-kun, said Hinata, looking at him innocently. Hinata, have you ever wondered why I have 2 kinds of chakra? Or why I seem to change in bad situations? Or why I have such fox-like characteristics? Naruto looked at Hinata grimly. Well, with the fox ears some kind of jutsu that went wrong. she asked, a bit nervous and scared now. Naruto didn't look very happy. Well, it is, but it's the jutsu Lawn did, it imbibed me with something, more so than I've ever had put in me, though. Naruto trailed off and looked at the floor. He didn't know how to say it. Hinata looked at Naruto for a long while. He stared at the floor and finally looked up at Hinata with a look of pleading. This happened because I'm a Jinchuriki, said Naruto, unable to meet her eyes. I have the Kyuubi sealed in me. Hinata's eyes widened. She had always assumed Naruto simply had some abnormal chakra condition. His fox-like markings, she gathered, were perhaps a facet of the condition. But she knew now, it was because he held the most terrible demon in existence, more terrible than Tsunade when she caught Jiraiya peeping, or like the time when Itachi found out there were no more crumpets in the Akatsuki lair because Toby ate them all, or when, well, you get the point. That's why everyone hates me. I'm house the source of so much destruction, fear and hate, said Naruto guiltily. Hinata at last found words to string together, but you aren't blaming yourself, right? She was as surprised with her own daring as Naruto was. What do you mean? Asked Naruto, awed. Well, this isn't your fault, is it, Naruto-kun? She asked quietly, she blushing ferociously. Began Naruto. How could he not blame himself? Then again, somewhere he knew this notion was psychotic. Don't, said Hinata, looking at the floor, don't blame yourself. It's not right. You have no reason to blame yourself. You didn't do anything, the Kyuubi did. Hinata looked up at Naruto, her eyes wet, but her face set with a look of determination. My love didn't all those people and cause all that destruction. He's clumsy and loves ramen. Naruto was at a loss. Hinata was right. If anything, his willpower has kept the Kyuubi at bay and the village safe. He just couldn't wrap his head around someone still loving him like Hinata did when he acted a cage for such a cruel demon. He stood still for a moment and then embraced Hinata. Thanks, Hinata, he said quietly. Hinata smiled a bit to herself and played with one of his ears. I love you Naruto-kun, so it doesn't matter what you're a vessel for. She giggled softly. I also love these ears, but we should probably find a way to get you fixed. I don't want to go to the doctor, pouted Naruto jokingly. Hinata laughed and bonked Naruto on the top of his head. That's creepy Naruto. Ba-chan. You can come now, called out Naruto. Tsunade strode in and was most relieved to see the two entwined. Well, provided everything went well, let's get you fixed Naruto. Naruto let go of Hinata and covered his sea, looking at Tsunade with a mortified expression. Not you two, Aba-san. They all laughed. Naruto, Hinata, Sakura and Kakashi arrived where the nomads had been staying when they came with Lawn only to find the area deserted. What? Yelled Naruto in disbelief. Where'd they go? He ran about, flailing his arms. They're called nomads for a reason idiot, said Sakura, annoyed. Why do they have to move though? Isn't one place good enough for them? Whined Naruto. In any case, we have to get back to Konoha to tell Tsunade. She usually keeps tabs on where the nomads go in case she needs jutsu refined, droned Kakashi. The group set off for Konoha. The entire trip had been a waste and Naruto was feeling down. It was bad enough to house a fox, but to actually have to be one now. Hinata looked over at Naruto's glum expression and blushed with an idea. She ran off suddenly and yelled, Catch me, Naruto-kun. Naruto looked up to see Hinata take off running, laughing. Naruto, said a familiar voice. Hinata. Where'd you guys go? Naruto pulled Hinata out of the clearing and threw the bush back onto the main road. He looked to his left and saw Sakura running up towards him. There you are, you idiot, she said. Where'd you guys head off to? We got, sidetracked, said Naruto sheepishly. A vein pulsed in Sakura's forehead, in the forest. Oh crap, said Naruto helplessly. Pervert, screeched Sakura, punching him into the stratosphere. Naruto was happy. Tsunade had told him that a nomad member was coming to put him right that day. Hinata was glad, though a bit saddened that his foxy ears would be leaving him. The two were waiting in Tsunade's office for the member. Naruto had his arms around Hinata's waist and was nibbling her end affectionately. He reached up and fondled one of Hinata's BS. They were alone in office, so why not? Wow, Naruto-kun, said Hinata through a deep blush and soft when you become Hokage, are you going to do such perverted things in your office? Naruto put his hand back on her waist again and smiled sheepishly, hadn't thought of that. He rested his chin on Hinata's shoulder and contented himself with drawing circles on her stomach with his finger. The door opened suddenly and the two looked up at the visitors. It was Tsunade, who could only be Nomad representative. Naruto's face fell. It wasn't Lawn. Nonetheless, he greeted the Nomad, whose name Amiko. She had a strange hair color. It was a grazent, changing from brown steadily into green bangs. Well, Naruto, let's see if we can't fix what Lawn did, she said cheerily. After a few moments' consideration, she performed a few hand seals. Naruto saw smoke shoot up around him and a sort of reverse effect of everything that had happened to him with the ears and melting paw. When it ended, he was panting and sweating. Amiko looked at him with a look of curiosity. Well, you endured that well. I sealed the jutsu into a scroll. It's a very interesting scroll because you can call out the jutsu, and you alone. It's a shame the Hokage couldn't tell me why. Tsunade looked off uneasily. Naruto looked at Amiko blankly. What benefits? Amiko laughed. Well, probably increased hearing, speed and stealth, if I don't my fox characteristics mixed up. Naruto's face dawned with comprehension. Of course. It did. Amiko laughed again and bade everyone goodbye after making a duplicate scroll and muttering about, refining it for general use, and strode out the door. Naruto remembered suddenly and called out after Amiko about what happened to Lawn. Haven't heard any more of him than you have, she said, a very slight edge in her voice. Naruto was puzzled. What could Lawn have done? Where'd he go? Naruto had decided to celebrate not being half fox anymore by taking Hinata to dinner. Unfortunately, they ran into a couple of friends and their party had swollen to 11, Shikamaru, Temari, Ino, Chuji, Sakura, Lee, Tenten, Neji, Kiba, Shino had all seen them in some way or another on the way to the restaurant and invited themselves politely, minus Neji who was tagging along to watch Naruto. The dinner went by rather uneventfully. Hinata got up to go use the bathroom. Sakura and Ino tagged along. Naruto, is that fox jutsu useful? Asked Shino mildly. Yeah, it increases hearing, speed and stealth apparently, explained Naruto, taking a bite of ice cream. He left the spoon in his mouth and furrowed his brow thoughtfully. I just hope it doesn't hurt so much each time I say it. Still, a mild animal transformation is actually pretty useful, Naruto, said Kiba thoughtfully. Naruto was glad he was being much warmer towards him. But if it's painful to use it, what's the bother? Droned Shikamaru, stacking toothpicks into a castle idly. Well, ish still pretty cool. It makes me all foxy, said Naruto, the spoon still in his mouth. I wonder if that jutsu affects you in more ways than one, said a voice silkily from behind. Its hand trailed down Naruto's chest and stopped on his stomach. It was Hinata. Naruto felt the spoon slide out of his mouth in shock. He laughed uneasily and looked at everyone else. Shikamaru had caught Temari's eye and looked off in the other direction, blushing softly, stacking toothpicks on a broken castle. Temari was busy looking anywhere but at him, blushing all the same. Shino pushed his glasses up his nose placidly. Kiba laughed. He didn't have to hound Naruto if Hinata could put him in these situations so easily. Sakura and Ino were both giggling madly. Neji had stood up, his hand glowing with chakra while Lee and Tenten restrained him. He was mumbling musley about destruction of innocence. He deflated slightly when it struck him that Hinata had said that. Nearby, Jiraiya, whom had happened to be eating in the restaurant with Kakashi, giggled gleefully and began writing notes voraciously. Kakashi giggled inwardly like a little girl. They were so cute together. Neji, I swear, I didn't do anything, yelled Naruto in fright, dragging Hinata by the arm out of the restaurant. Get back here, breathed Neji, throwing several shuriken at Naruto, all of them missed in his blind fury. But I didn't do anything, screamed back Naruto as he rounded a corner. Technically, Hinata had caused this, but Naruto wasn't about to put down fresh confidence. Naruto did not realize that he had run in a complete circle and ended back at the restaurant, nor did he realize that he bolted back inside. Almost subconsciously, he found his friends still at the table, all still a bit dazed at what Hinata had said. He dove under the table, letting go of Hinata's arm and hissing at her in a panic, "Shush." Hinata sat down in front of the hiding genin and started talking to Tenten. How am I going to make him stop? asked Hinata wearily. Tenten looked at Hinata thoughtfully and suddenly lit up. Giggling, she waved for Hinata to get closer and whispered her plan into her ear. Is that really going to work? Gasped Hinata. He's got to see the light of day sometime, said Tenten simply. Meanwhile, at the other end of the table, Sakura and Ino were doing their best to take advantage of how awkward Temari and Shikamaru looked. Sakura decided to pester the sand kunoiki while Ino bothered the perpetually lethargic Nara. Come on Temari, began the strawberry-haired ninja, are you ever going to do something? Temari mumbled uncomfortably. For someone who was usually so tough, it was actually a bit unsettling. Why do you care? She finally said. Because it's a bit like watching Naruto and Hinata before they were together, only worse, because you both like each other. In their case, one was just a dense idiot and the other was too shy to say anything, said Sakura pointedly. Temari made an indistinct noise in her tea. Sakura was right, waiting wasn't the best course of action. But they both knew how they felt. How do you go about bringing it out and talking about it? Hi, I heard you like me and I like you too, let's go out, sounded extremely stupid in Temari's head. I'll do something about it, said Temari, just need the right circumstances. Shikamaru, obviously, heard none of this because Ino was pestering him. Look Ino, I'll do what I want, he droned. That's nothing. Literally, said Ino angrily. She wasn't about to put up with his lethargy, he was going to do something even if she had to force him. So what? Said Shikamaru, a bit agitated now, women are troublesome anyway. Don't say that like you believe it, huffed Ino, I've seen what you've done when she's not look. Shikamaru, with surprising speed, clamped his hand over Ino's mouth and said urgently, shush. Chuji chose this moment to put in his crunchy 2 chips, cents. Listen to her Shikamaru, said Chuji idly, it's better you get it done now than later, we all know how much you like her. Ino removed Shikamaru's hand and said to him acidly, see. Fine, he said, at last relenting, but when do I start? No time like the present, yelled Ino and Sakura in perfect unison. As one, they grabbed Temari's and Shikamaru's heads and forced their lips together. Neji bounded into the restaurant and stopped when he saw the scene. They're together. Temari and Shikamaru initially tried to pull away at forcibly having their mouths pressed together, but eventually relented and were enjoying a thoroughly good kiss. Sakura and Ino gave each other a high five and then turned their attention to what Neji was going to do to Naruto. If you think for 1 second I don't know you're under that table, screamed Neji at the quaking genin under the table. Tenten got up and turned Neji towards her, leave him alone will you? Stay out of this Tenten, growled Neji. You need to relax, said Tenten softly. Neji was taken when her lips met his, he was more taken aback when she pressed the kiss further. Perhaps it was because he was so busy trying to kei Naruto he never really put much attention into more important things, like the affection a teammate had for you. When at last they broke apart, Neji looked a bit bemused. Sorry, Tenten, said Neji after a pause. Neji suddenly heard a low rumbling behind Tenten. It was Hinata, and she looked demonic enough to have Itachi consider changing underwear. Neji-ni-san, what are you doing? She breathed. Neji, needless to say, bolted. After a pause, the group of ninja burst out laughing. Naruto crawled out from under the table and kissed Hinata on the cheek and pulled her into a tight embrace. That was amazing. Maybe he'll finally leave me alone now that he's had a taste of his own medicine, said the blonde enthusiastically. It was all Tenten's idea really, said Hinata softly, a smile on her lips. Naruto thanked Tenten. She looked quite pleased with herself and blushed softly. Unbeknownst to the group, a dark figure had been watching the group the entire time. It smirked to itself, its eyes resting particularly on the lavender-eyed kunoiki. Neji lay on his bed, huffing and panting. He felt a mix of emotions at once, anger, excitement and a severe need for some tea. The excitement came from Tenten's kiss, he was glad she liked him. The anger came from the fact that realized that it was a plot to get a dose of his own medicine, granted, he would have to lay off now. Only because I've got better things to do now, he growled somewhat softly, thinking of Tenten. He was thirsty because running like a fing animal was thirsty work. Neji got up to make himself some tea. Lemon perhaps. Yes, lemon. It was delicious tea to have. He would have lemon tea and then go to bed. Perhaps tomorrow he could strangle Naruto. No. Tenten would kill him. He would be forced to give up his pursuits. Damn her, he said audibly, women truly hold the power. Hiashi had been walking by and heard Neji. He smirked and said aloud, Sweet Kami, yes, they do. Neji choked on his tea. The following day dawned happy and bright. And the splendid mood promised Naruto a wonderful day with Hinata. Unfortunately, fate had something else in mind. He had scarcely set out for the Hyuga compound when a very grim-looking Neji appeared before him. This took Naruto aback. It looked as if someone had SD. The Hokage wants to see you, Naruto, said Neji quietly. Why do you look so glum? Asked Naruto. Neji sighed. It'll be a tough mission, Naruto. He disappeared in a puff of smoke. For Neji not to want to kill me, it must be serious, said Naruto aloud. He set off for the Hokage's office. Abasan, said Naruto worriedly as he walked into the Hokage's office, what's going on? Naruto pulled back the chair in front of the Hokage's desk but was promptly told to stop. You're going to jump back up again when I tell you anyway, said Tsunade darkly. Naruto stared at her. Hinata's been abducted, said Tsunade. What? Said Naruto. He didn't understand. She's been abducted, repeated Tsunade. And no, I just saw her yesterday. He paused. This isn't a very funny joke, said the blonde, managing an uneasy smile. I am not Naruto. You must find her and get her back, as I'm sure if I assigned anyone else, you would have forced yourself to go along, continued Tsunade. A note was left. She produced the note from her drawer. It simply asks for a ransom and gives a time and place. She handed it to Naruto, who took it from her, his movements jagged. When do I start? Asked Naruto, his voice trembling. Tsunade stared at the figure before her, his chakra was amassing. It was best to let him set out and tell his teammates to simply follow his trail. Now, she replied simply. Good, said Naruto with finality. He disappeared, leaving behind only a strong gust of wind. Somewhere outside of the village, he was racing towards the location detailed on the note. I'm going to kill the bastard. No excuses, growled Naruto, a tail of chakra swaying visibly behind him. Deep inside him, the Kyuubi growled in affirmation. So you sent him out alone? Asked Neji. Yes, but naturally, you three are to follow him, said the Hokage matter-of-factly. Right, said Sakura, nodding with determination. All right then, said Kakashi, looking over his book with mild interest. How should we track him? Asked Sakura. He'll have cleared a visible path, answered Kakashi. Kakashi was right. Half an hour later, they were outside of the village, greeted by a sort of ravine created straight through the trees towards the cave the KPER had outlined in his ransom. Naruto stopped outside the cave the perpetrator had described. He was not supposed to be there for another day or so. The assailant had deemed that sufficient time for the ninja to get things in order. Naruto wasn't going to wait. He pressed on, the red aura of chakra around growing ever more sinister. Hinata's eyes fluttered open. She was in a dark stone room. Her clothing was a bit ruffled and dirty. The room was utterly barren save a bottle of water in the corner. She activated her Byakugan. She was surprised to find she could not. She looked down at herself and could not figure out why she could not, until she noticed a strange symbol on the back of her left hand. It looked like a circle in another circle. Inscribed in each was a triangle and surrounding the larger circle was a square that perfectly boxed it in. There was also strange lettering that she could not make out. The terror set in instantly. Was her captor after her blood limit? What if he was after her? I went to the bathroom, and then, that's all I remember, she thought in horror. She suddenly realized she had a pounding headache. The back of her head sported a large bump roughly the size of a golf ball. She winced when she touched it. She got up and went to the door of her cell and tentatively pushed. To her surprise it opened. She found herself in a dark hallway. Stealing her wool, the kunoichi walked down it slowly and deliberately before finding herself in a large, cavernous room. In the center was a table that might seat 5 people, chairs, a tablecloth and lit candles. Ah, you're finally awake, said a voice from behind her suddenly. Hinata turned instantly and assumed a Jukan stance. The voice laughed softly, coldly, of course, a pitiful attempt at fighting me. Hinata narrowed her eyes. She could not yet perfectly see the figure, but she knew it was wearing a cloak and hood and was roughly a foot taller than her. She prepared herself to strike, but her palms would not expel chakra. It seemed that the strange seal did more than seal her blood limit. Ah yes, crooned the shadow, you can't defend yourself without your precious chakra or eyes, can you? In one swift motion, he backhanded Hinata. Hinata hit the ground and tasted blood. She looked back at the shadow that had moved to the table and sat down. He's fast, she thought, that's not good. Sit down, you silly child, said the shadow. Hinata remained rooted to the spot. The captor sighed, perhaps some light would help. Hinata heard a clapping noise and the cave was suddenly bathed in enough light to see her captor. He was a male, with black hair slathered on his face and dark grey eyes. They bore an almost wistful intellect. His mouth was twisted into a very slight smile, one that simultaneously gave off an aura of arrogance and pity. It was all very unsettling. Hinata walked over tentatively to the table and sat down on the edge of her chair across from the unnamed captor. Excellent, he said placidly, now, your little friends should be coming by soon, which is just what I want. The Jinchuriki, oh, when he gets here it shall be a sweet harvest. What are you talking about? Blurted out Hinata. That seal you have upon your hand is no ordinary seal, you do realize that, yes? Began the assailant, it not only seals your abilities, it lets me use them. His eyes suddenly gained the characteristics of the Byakugan. Hinata gasped. How can you do that? She looked down at her seal and noticed it was glowing. Special seals, of course, said the shadow matter-of-factly, how else? No one in my memory can use these seals. And when that Jinchuriki comes barging in for his girlfriend, I'll be able to sap the Kyuubi's power from him. I'll be unstoppable. If I had a bowl of ramen for every time I heard that one, growled a voice deep within the cave. Naruto appeared next to Hinata suddenly. His appearance was growing more and more like they Kyuubi's with each passing second. I'm not going to give you that chance. Naruto shot towards him, a barely perceptible blur, and slashed viciously. The shadow avoided the strike, but barely. Weren't you ever taught manners? Whispered the assailant maliciously, I haven't even introduced myself. F you, growled Naruto, lunging at the attacker and grabbing him by the tee. Within moments, the KPER was gasping for air. A horrible retching sound was suddenly heard behind the two, however. Naruto turned around, still throttling the attacker, and let go in horror. Hinata was doubled over on the floor, clutching at invisible hands wrapped around her tee. The seal on her left hand was glowing blood red. You cannot hope to win as long as that seal is upon her hand. I am not called the Voodoo Nin for no reason, replied Voodoo, licking his lips hungrily. Let us see how long you last before you Kami, and therefore her, or let me take the Kyuubi's power from your body. Naruto began to look more like his usual self, his heart sinking and fear g-sping his body. He might as well have been told he could only win by tearing out his own heart. He turned to look at Hinata, who looked back at him with a terrified expression. It was the perfect strategy. Naruto could not kill a part of his soul. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.